Welcome. I'm Faye Waterman and this is Talking All Things Business. My guest today is Erin Van Kirk and she is the founder of Goddess Natural Perfume and she's from Huon Valley, Tasmania. Welcome, Erin, and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Faye. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be talking with you.
It's a pleasure. Now, Erin, this is all about you and who and what you do, but let's go back and find a little bit of history about where you come from and where you are today. What's brought you to where you are today? So, where did you grow up?
I grew up about as far south as you can possibly go here in Tasmania. So, tiny little town called Southport. There are about 100 permanent residents there at the time, and probably similar sort of numbers there these days as well. Yes, I grew up on a farm. It was my uncle's farming cattle, so I spent a lot of time out on the land, out in nature. My father was a park ranger, so spent a lot of time in our national parks as well growing up.
Okay. And what was it like to grow up in I suppose it's the country, isn't it?
It's true country, yeah. Honestly, I didn't appreciate it as a child. I at times found it quite boring, particularly when I reached high school and all my friends were catching up over, the weekend, socialising. I went to a boarding school, so I would come home to Southport for the weekends. And so while I was at home with my family, my friends were all catching up on the weekend, and I found it, a bit isolating in that respect, but certainly now as an adult, I have a much greater appreciation of, my beautiful hometown and spend as much time there as I possibly can with my family.
Absolutely. And when you said you went to boarding school, so you lived in Southport, but you boarded during the week at a boarding school. What school? What was school like for you?
School was, it was an interesting experience. I guess I've never liked schedule. I've never been an avid learner. I think certainly there's been potential there, but I only ever did enough, to pass sufficiently my subjects at school. But for me, it was a bit of a transitional period, I guess, when I did start boarding. So I went to primary school much closer to home at Southport. The next little town is Dover, and they had a high school there, a district school there. But my parents decided that actually it's probably a really good idea for myself and my siblings to sort of experience the bigger, wider world. And so when it was time for high school, they sent us to a Catholic college in Nieuwkuyk, actually, in Tasmania. So yes, the first 2 years I spent boarding, and that was good. It was a bit of an adjustment period for me. I did feel quite homesick for the first, few months, but I soon realised my independence, and I really loved, being my own person through the week, and then, obviously the family time on the weekend became a lot more important as well.
Yeah. And did you have any favourite teachers? I mean, how many students were there in the Dover school, because it was a country school?
Yeah, there were 120 students in Dover at the school there from kindergarten through to grade 10. Wow. When I went to high school, there were 120 students in year 7 alone.
Yes. Isn't it interesting? What was that transition like for you, moving from 120 total in the school to 120 in one grade, I suppose you could say? Yeah,
it was, I guess, in one hand, a bit of an eye-opener. I think just, the sheer volume of students that you could fit in one place. I was used to the space and, the grounds of our of the primary school that I went to. But on the other hand, look, I've always been, I think, a bit of an extroverted introvert. If that makes sense. But so people it didn't bother me so much, but it was more so just adjusting to, new faces and creating new friendships and those sorts of things, I guess, adjusting to life as a high school student.
Yes. And teachers, was there a big difference between the teachers that you had at the country school as opposed to school in town?
Yeah, well, I guess the school in town had the specialist teachers, so you're sort of in contact with a larger variety of teachers, to each delivering their own subject, where in primary school you sort of have your homeroom teacher and you get the few, you might have a PE teacher and an art teacher, but generally your home class teacher would cover off everything. But so yeah, certainly a lot more teachers to sort of get to know. But a standout teacher for me would have been Mr. Wolford. He was a social science teacher, and he just had this brilliant knack of just creating engaging, inspiring lessons. So it was, I enjoyed his classes for the entertainment value, if nothing else.
Right, okay. That's interesting. Entertainment. I mean,
yeah.
I've not heard anyone call school or a teacher entertaining. So,
well, this guy's, he's the exception.
And that's good, because that would get the kids involved if there was a bit of entertainment there. So I think that's a great concept. What a good skill for a teacher to have. So when you moved on from school, what was your next step? Did you get a job when you were old enough, when, as you were still going to school, or? Yeah,
so I started working at Woolworths. It was Purity back in the day. So when I was in grade 9, so just some after school and weekend shifts there. I went on to college after I finished high school, so completed year 11, and then at the start of year 12, there's an opportunity presented to me to apply for a traineeship with a Tasmanian brewer called J. Bogue and Son, or Bogues. And look, at the time, I just had enough of school. I didn't have any aspiration to go to university. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to have to continue my education for the sake of it. If I wanted to go on to uni, it would need to be for something that I was really passionate about. And at that time, I just hadn't found my passion, or what that was, I guess. Yeah. So I applied for this traineeship at Bogues. I was offered the role, which was fantastic. I thought, excellent, in the workforce now, don't have to worry about completing year 12. This traineeship will give me the skills that I need as I enter in the workforce. But the managing director of the company at the time, he had a daughter my age too, and he said to me, I'd really like you to finish year 12. So they very generously tailored the traineeship to me. So I was at work with them 3 days a week, and I whittled down my subjects just to the basic sort of English and math subjects for college, and went there 2 days a week to complete my TCE.
How nice was that? Very kind and very thoughtful. You wouldn't find back in those days, not that it was that long ago, but you would have an employer that would suggest that. That's interesting.
It was a real blessing, and I went on to stay with Bogues for 7.5 years. So that was really the formative years of my career, and really established, a great skill set. And I guess business, just that exposure to all sorts of business people through my role there was, really valuable to me, and still, benefits me to this day.
Beautiful.
20 odd years down the track.
Yeah. And how nice is it to have someone who employs you that cares about your well-being, which is lovely. Okay. So after you finished there, what did you do?
So for a couple of years, I guess, leading up to my actually leaving Bogues, I had a really keen interest and desire in joining the police force here in Tassie. So I applied, the first time round, and was actually knocked back because I failed the psychological testing. So as you'd probably, assume, there's some really stringent sort of testing that goes on before you're can go through, I guess, the various recruitment process to join the police force. So that knocked the wind out of my sails a little bit, but nonetheless, I thought, I'm happy. I'm really happy here working at Bogues. I'll just continue on, and maybe down the track I'll try again. So 2 years later, again, I felt the need and submitted my application, passed all the testing, and ended up at the academy with my group of recruits.
Okay, so did you go out on the beat after you'd done your training and all the rest of it?
Actually, this is a really short story, Faye. I lasted 1 month at the academy. So
1 month after you'd gone through all the trauma of the psychological test and everything else, and lasted 1 month. What was it that made you want to go?
Well, there was certainly nothing about the training or the academy itself or the instructors there. I loved the challenge, and I was doing really well in that short space of time that I was there. But the recruitment process for the police force, it was quite a lengthy one this time around. So it was about 9 months from me submitting my application to actually, having my first day there at the academy with a group of recruits. And in the meantime, I met my now husband on the bus to work. So I was catching the bus into Bogues, as I did for a number of years. And Luke, as it turns out, had just returned from an overseas adventure, and he was saving for his next trip away. We crossed paths on the bus, and he very bravely sat next to me after having caught my eye a couple of times, and started a conversation about music. And we realised we had an awful lot in common, and so it went from there. So in between applying at the academy, or for the police force, my first day at the academy, I had met Luke, and I knew pretty quickly that he was, I'd met my match, and so my future suddenly was looking a bit different to what I'd had in mind, and the police force wasn't going to be, supportive of the lifestyle that I really desired then.
Yes, because there'd be shift work, and you'd be out in the beat and walking the streets. And,
absolutely.
And all those sorts of things. And I admire them for their dedication and everything, and what they have to do and what they actually put up with. It was never an inspiration of mine. So you got a good insight into what's expected. So that was good. Okay, moving on from there, you found your match in life, or your soulmate in life, and you were still at Bogues. When did you leave Bogues? What happened after that?
So I did leave Bogues to join the police force. So I had my month at the academy, and actually the straw that broke the camel's back in that sense was I was playing mixed netball one Sunday afternoon before I was to return to the academy. This is all live-in, the recruits all lived on the site at the time there. It's changed now. But at the time, I was due to head back to the academy, but I sprained my ankle at netball and I couldn't walk. And that for me, I think, is when all the emotion of the decision that had been sort of tumbling around my mind even since I'd started there, it all came to a fore, and I said, look, you know what, I'm not coming back. So I nursed my sprained ankle and I suddenly didn't have a job. But what Luke and I had decided to do was to relocate to Perth, to Western Australia. We didn't really know how long, honestly. At the time, the big mining boom was happening, and we thought, gee, what an experience that would be to go and live in a mining town up in the outback somewhere. Maybe get a bit of money behind us to really help us set ourselves up. So we went off to Perth, but it was all just sort of starting to downturn when we got there, and we arrived in Perth and thought, you know what, this is actually a really nice place to be and to live. And so we ended up settling in Perth and finding work there.
And not going to the mines?
No, not at all. But we did have family in the Pilbara, actually, so we got to go and see the landscape and see what it was all about. But yeah, I think we'd certainly made the right choice by staying in Perth by the water.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got to be dedicated or make a decision to say, I'm going to be working in the mines for X amount of time, because there's no life really. I mean, a lot of the people that work in the mines are fly in, fly out. And that's a tough life for them and their families, if they have families. So, it's okay for somebody who's single, just do that and make the money, because there wouldn't be anywhere to spend it.
No.
So you'd be saving it. So your life in Perth, how long did you live in Perth for?
For 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, so I had a couple of summers in Perth, but we both we just missed the diversity that Tasmania offers. What I love about where I live here in the Huon Valley is that I can jump in the car, and in under an hour I can be at the top of Mount Wellington in Hobart. I can be at one of a number of beautiful beaches. I can be deep in the forest somewhere. I can be at the movies. It's just everything is in arm's reach, and I really miss that diversity when we were living in Perth, because it felt as though you just need to drive for hours for a change of scenery.
Yes, yeah. It's a beautiful place though. absolutely beautiful place.
It really is. Yeah, looking forward to going back actually.
Yes.
For a visit.
So after you came back and you settled back in Tas, and what did you do?
What did I do? Well, while we were in Perth, my husband Luke, he completed his graduate diploma in education, so he became a high school teacher.
Okay.
Call him crazy. So he found work at one of the local high schools. We settled back in the Huon Valley, and so he's been working. Yeah, it's coming up 10 years teaching now. There's actually one in medical recruitment.
Can we stop there?
Sure.
What happened when you started to cut out? So let's go back to your husband's been 10 years or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
So, okay, do that, and then I'll chop it and do that.
Okay, so my husband Luke has been a high school teacher, so coming up to 10 years now, teaching in schools, 2 schools in the Huon Valley. For me, I did a number of jobs varying between medical recruitment, tour guiding, and working in economic development for the local government here as well, the Huon Valley Council. So
that would have been interesting. And being a tour guide, I mean, that would have been interesting in itself, taking people out and sharing your passion of the beauty and the surroundings of where you actually live right now.
Yeah, interesting, because I was guiding down at the Hastings Caves and Thermal Springs, so supporting visitors around the site there, but taking those guided tours through the caves. And what I love so much about that is, I mean, it's where I grew up. So Hastings Caves is, down south near Southport, but it was also where my father commenced his career with parks and wildlife. So we sort of joked that it had gone full circle. My dad had retired at that point, and I was going back in there and picking up the reins for the family.
Quite interesting, isn't it? So after you'd finished that, how many children do you have?
I have 3 children now. So, yeah, Noah is 7, Esther is 5, and my little Lucy, she's coming up to 1 actually.
Wow.
So nearing her first birthday.
Wow, that's incredible, isn't it? Just how quickly that year has gone.
It has, yeah, it's absolutely flown. But I feel really blessed this time around, particularly because I am home-based now. I'm working from home 100%. So I'm just soaking it all up, my gorgeous little baby.
How perfect is that? Now, you have 3 children, you have a husband, you have a home to look after. You also do work as can I say it, a VA for?
Yeah, a virtual assistant. Yeah.
Yes, and you also have something else on the side, which is rather exciting. And this is the Goddess Natural Perfume. How did you come up with the name to start with, and then let's share a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. I think the name came almost before the product, really. And I mean, to me, Goddess is all about strength and resilience and character, and it's nothing about the physical aspect that I think a lot of people envision when they think Goddess.
It's the beauty. Yes.
Yeah, for me, it's more like it's more a character trait, So, and that's really what I want to put out there through my brand Goddess. It's about empowering women and basically just being, feeling unapologetic about who you are and what you stand for.
Beautiful. Now, you developed this perfume, but what was the inspiration for you to create this perfume in the first place?
Well, it really all began when I was pregnant with Esther, so my second born. At that time, something had piqued my interest just about the everyday personal care products that we use, and for me, it was particularly deodorant, given the fact that I was a breastfeeding mum. And I think having had a bit of time on my hands to sort of investigate the nature of some of the typical ingredients in these products, Faye, I see your expression. For me, it inspired me actually to essentially detox or low tox at the very least all my personal care and my family's cleaning products. as well. So I found a brand that I was, really well aligned with, that covered off all the personal care aspects. So I knew I didn't have to put any thought into that. I switched to one of the, natural cleaning, Nieuwkuyks, or there are quite a few of them around at the moment now. But that was all very easy to make the switch to low tox or no tox. But for me, the gap was perfume.
Right. What was it about perfume? Because perfume's highly, it's highly filled with chemicals, and it's an interesting thing, because when you put perfume on your skin, it absorbs into your bloodstream in 10, 20 seconds.
Yeah. People
don't realise that, do they?
That's right, and that's true for all your personal care products as well. When you start thinking about the number of products that you use, on a daily or a weekly basis, your shampoo, your conditioner, your shower gel, your deodorant, your makeup, your hair styling products, there are so many things that we use without even thinking about. But look, my whole ethos is sort of do what you can with what you know. And even if you start by, paying an interest in what's in your products that you're using, trying to understand exactly what it is, what the ingredients on the label are and the potential impacts they might have on your health, and just switch one thing out at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It isn't hard, but I think we need to educate ourselves to understand that, these chemicals that surround us are the cause of a lot of our illnesses that happen. And breathing in these fumes when you're cleaning and things like that, there's so much toxicity in them. But perfume is something that is used on the body, and we really need to be aware of what's in it.
Yeah.
And we have that choice of either putting it on our skin or not putting it on our skin. So with your product, your perfume, how did you create it? What was it that you made it evolve from to what it is now?
So, look, I guess it started. I went without perfume for a long time, and I started then looking at, I guess, what the natural ingredients that that do smell just beautiful, and how they can combine, and and how they can, like traditional perfume too, smell differently on everybody. So I went to an essential oil workshop. I was invited by a friend to another friend's event, and I sat there and I said, they're talking all about the therapeutic benefits of these, miraculous essential oils. I said, look, I understand there are all sorts of benefits to be had from these things. I just want to smell nice. And purely that was my motivation. So that alone sort of inspired me into, and empowered me in a way to go, right, well, I know that those tools are there to create something that's, genuinely my own, that I can wear as an alternative to traditional perfume. And so, I bought a few oils and sort of started mixing, and there was a particular blend that I came up with that really, to me, went, that embodies the goddess. That's the perfume to go with the name.
Beautiful. So how long have you been doing this? How long did it take you to get to a point where you developed your first perfume?
It was about 6 months from actually deciding that, yes, I'm going to create a business out of what I'm doing with my perfume. So 6 months from that point to actually having a product and a logo and, the brand behind it to run with. So I didn't give myself time, or I didn't want to give myself time to talk myself out of it. But let's not overthink it, let's just get it done.
And that's a pretty short time to develop a product in, particularly a perfume, because they usually take a long time before they, with all the chemicals and all the mixtures and everything that are created. And you did that in 6 months by making a decision, I just want it done.
That's right. I just want to put it out there before I start second guessing myself and what I'm doing with it. And the beauty of my perfume is that it is essential oil based. So that means, I blend it by hand. Here in the Huon Valley, I bottle and package it all by hand. The turnaround time is much quicker than you might expect in terms of being able to produce it. such a wonderful process, though.
Is it something that eventually you could actually process in the way that you want it processed, in mass production?
I think so. I think it's always going to have that handmade, handcrafted element to it, because that's important to me and to the brand. I think that personal touch is really important. And, I was going to say, on one hand, it's sort of a bit of a dying art these days because there's so much mass-produced stuff everywhere. But I think what I've found since starting my small business is that actually there's a wide, network of creators and makers crafting their own beautiful products that are available there for everybody, but we just need to look for them, need to look beyond the flashy TV advertising and, the catalogues. We just need to dig a little deeper because there's a whole world of, of marvellous, products and arts and crafts there for us.
There is an amazing ability within humans to be so creative. It's incredible. And I think some people find that magic and bring it out. And some people leave that magic suppressed inside them. And they only say, I wish I could do that. But when you say to yourself, okay, this is what I want to do, go find the products or whatever you need, the resources you need to be able to create and develop what you have created and developed within a very short space of time is pretty amazing. Now, when you do your packaging and everything like that, do you have someone create that for you, make it for you so that it makes it easier for you to then box it and send it off, or what?
Yes, so I get, obviously they have the boxes and the labels. They've all been designed by a local graphic designer who's so talented in being able to take my vision and put it onto paper. Like, is exactly what I had in mind is what she was able to produce for me. So that, was amazing. But I have all the boxes, printed, all the labels printed. It's here. I do it. It's all by hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time consuming. So you fit that in between being a mother, a wife, looking after a household, and being a VA as well.
Yeah.
So just a little interest on the side, should we say, huh?
Just a little one. And, it came about at such an interesting time too, because I was pregnant with Lucy. At the time, I was working 3 days a week back in Glenorchy, so an hour's drive, so 2 hours commuting a day. Had my lit list too, starting kindergarten and in prep. I just made it work, and I think because the passion and the desire was there to really share not only my product but also the messaging behind my brand, which is so important to me, and I think important for women to hear. That was, I guess, the driving force. And we all get 24 hours in each day. I'm not going to say that I use every single one of mine wisely every day, because that's not the case. But I think when the motivation and the passion is there, time almost stands still to allow you to reach your goals.
We have as much time as we need, as long as we use it wisely.
Exactly.
And, task it and do those sorts of things. But the story behind your perfume, is there more to this story than you've shared so far?
I guess, it wouldn't have come about, in all honesty, were it not for, a couple of years worth of personal development that I'd sort of immersed myself in leading up to that point. I don't think I ever would have had the confidence, or the goal, mind you, to actually put myself and my product out there in the way that I have done, were it not for having learned about self-limiting beliefs and paradigms and all sorts of interesting things like that. So really, I guess, overcoming those, or being aware of those perceived obstacles at the start, really just enabled me to hit the ground running, and I think certainly contributed to the quick turnaround from idea to actual product.
So it's actually all about the belief in yourself, and then making that decision, and then just going for it and doing it, and believing in yourself, and having people in the background who believe in you as well.
Absolutely. I think that support network is really important. But interestingly, and a little side note, I guess, when I first sort of floated the idea of this business that I had in mind to my mum, I gave her the perfume, said, here's a blend, I really love it. She wasn't so keen on the fragrance, and she said, oh, have you sought any other feedback on this, whether people actually like it or not? And I said, well, no, Mum, because I know that this isn't going to be for everybody. The nature of perfume is that it's really personal. What you like, I might dislike. What smells amazing on you might smell differently on me, because, perfume smells differently on everyone. I said, Mum, no, I don't feel the need to do that market research, because I know this will resonate with the right people. And interestingly, now my mum does love that original blend that I came up it needed a bit of time, because it can be quite different. If you're used to wearing your traditional, department store brands of perfume, it is a different experience using a natural perfume. But it's all that, it's just that adjustment.
It is. It actually is. If you were to give some tips to mums, young mums, or families, or women, or anyone who had the desire to create a business for themselves, what would you say to them?
Look, I would just say start, I guess, tuning into your intuition and to your gut, because I think we know the right path for ourselves. I think we know when we're on the right track or the wrong track, but we are just so bombarded with messages externally, from the media, from our social media, maybe from friends or family as well, who are all telling us things that aren't in alignment with us and what we want to do. But I think if you have an idea, honestly, just give it life. Get it down on paper and do a little bit of research, and you don't have to look far to find there are an abundance of resources out there available for people wanting to start business, whether it's through your state government or your local government. There are many programs and resources that can support you through.
Absolutely. And I think, don't think about it too much, just go and do it, and then find those people who will support you, and keep away from those people who are going to be negative and give you those negative vibes. I think we all have a magic inside us, and we have to allow it to come out so that we can be the creators of our own creations. And there are people out there waiting and wanting what you have. So, just as the Nike ad says, just do it.
Just do it, absolutely. And, and I think my biggest takeaway would be, look, just give it life. Don't suppress those ideas and think that it can't be done, or think of the reasons why it can't. For me, a huge turning point behind the decision actually, yes, to create Goddess Natural Perfume and launch my brand and product was, I was listening to a personal development recording actually, and it was Bob Proctor, and he said, stop thinking about what could go wrong and start thinking about, what can go right. And that was a huge light bulb for me. And I just went, I've been looking at this completely the wrong way. Yeah. And that day my decision was made. So, and that's coming up to 18 months ago now. I've got 4 perfume blends. I've got stockists all over Tassie, reaching out into mainland Australia as well. And I love, just the contact I'm having with my customers and the feedback that I'm hearing, and for people even that don't use the perfume but just love so much, our messaging and what we're doing on social media. It's a real blessing for me.
Beautiful, because you have a special gift that you need to share with the world. Erin, do you have any of your products sitting right there so that you can actually show us what it looks like?
Actually do, Faye.
And talk about the aroma, the scent, and how it came about. That just one of them, one particular one, your favourite, whichever.
Okay. My favourite at the moment is the one that I've just most recently released. It's a Baronia.
Right.
So Baronia is a native Australian flower.
Yes.
A bit temperamental when you try to grow it in the garden. I think it can survive really well for a few years, but then just suddenly, and for apparently no reason, it will die. But it's beautiful. You can see perhaps the how bright and vibrant that colour is. It's a beautiful yellow extract. Pardon me. So the Bryonia here, I've blended it with a bit of citrus. We have a sandalwood base.
Right.
All of the perfume, so that helps the fragrance to last longer on the skin. Really, really beautiful. And this one's been so well received. So that's my favourite. You can see the 10ml roller bottles, the stainless steel roller ball that we love. So just apply it to your skin in the usual sort of points.
Nice. I'm jealous. I can't use it. I'll get some. And actually, yeah. How are you going to get it into Melbourne? I think you just have to come and visit.
I think that's the best way to do it. You know, there's only so much so many words you can use to describe a fragrance by email. So I'm thinking a bit of a trip might be really nice.
Fabulous. Thank you, Erin, for sharing your passion for developing, being a mum, being a wife, being a VA, being a creator of your own business when you have 3 young children to bring up as well. I congratulate you, and I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you so much, Faye. I do really appreciate it.
I'm Faye Waterman. This is Talking All Things Business. Until next time, bye for now.